Achimov, Russia, 1864. A young woman sits alone in a dark room. Her face is illuminated by the flickering light of a candle as she works diligently at a small table. She is sewing, but it's not just any sewing. She is creating an exquisite piece of needlework that will be sold to the highest bidder at the next estate sale. But as the clock strikes midnight, her nimble fingers begin to falter. The candle flame sputters and dies, plunging her into total darkness. With a sigh, she lays down her work and prepares for bed. But as she drifts off to sleep, she can't help but dream of a different life, a life where she doesn't have to spend her days sewing for wealthy landowners or working in factories for long hours with little pay. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to ask, can you handle the harsh reality of Victorian labor? For many of us, the Victorian era conjures up images of horse-drawn carriages, top hats, and beautiful ball gowns. It was a time when great inventors like Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell were changing the world as we know it. But for many, the Victorian era was a much darker time. It was an age of great poverty and hardship, especially for those who worked in factories or as domestic servants. In this time period, there was a huge gap between the rich and the poor. The richest people lived lives of luxury while the poor often struggled to survive. People began to do whatever they could to earn money, even if it meant working long hours in dangerous conditions. Child labor was also widespread during this time. Children as young as 5 years old worked long hours in factories doing dangerous jobs. They were often paid less than adults and were expected to work until they were too old to do so. Many children died as a result of the hard labor or from injuries sustained on the job. So let's get back to our friend in Russia. She is just one of millions of people who lived and died during the Victorian era. Her story is a reminder of the harsh realities of life during this time period. It was an era when many people worked long hours in dangerous conditions just to survive. And yet it was also an age when some of the greatest inventions were made and when people's lives were transformed forever. So now it's time to hear from you. Can you handle the harsh reality of Victorian labor? How do you think people like our protagonist should have handled this situation? Let us know in the comments below. Factory work was one of the most dangerous jobs a person could have during the Victorian era. The machines were often poorly maintained and accidents were common. Workers, including children, were frequently injured or killed. In addition to the physical dangers, factory work was also incredibly boring. Workers were expected to work long hours without taking breaks. This led to a high level of absenteeism, and workers would often simply leave their jobs without notice. Domestic service was another popular job during the Victorian era. Servants were employed to work in the homes of wealthy families. They were responsible for cooking, cleaning, and taking care of the children. Although this may sound like a relatively easy job, it was actually quite difficult. Servants were expected to work long hours and were often treated poorly by their employers. They were also not allowed to leave the house without permission, which meant that they were essentially prisoners in their own workplace. Life as a farm laborer during the Victorian era was also very difficult. Farm laborers worked long hours for low pay and were often at the mercy of their employers. They were also subject to the whims of nature and often had to work in dangerous conditions. For example, they might have to work in the hot sun all day or in the cold rain. They were also at risk of injury from the animals they were working with. Despite the hardships they faced, the people of the Victorian era were able to endure, and in many cases, they were able to improve their lives. Through hard work and determination, they were able to create a better future for themselves and their families. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think? Could you handle the harsh reality of Victorian labor? Which job would you choose? Factory work, domestic service, or farm labor? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.